Should we be paying more attention to ancestral medicine on a whole?
How do we become sovereign? And that's where I think it's so powerful to look into the ancient toolkits because they're all about prevention.
Were you able to offset the effects of chronic use just by embracing this modality?
Ayurveda, the system that I teach, is over 5,000 years old. And Ayurveda shows us how to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment, and how when we have that, we can build vibrant health.
I'm so guilty of that. You're convicting me right now.
Even when I eat now, I have to fight with myself, but I put my phone down. And I'm like, listen, do you want the nutrition from the food? Or do you want to digest what you're watching? Pick one.
What steps can somebody take, do you think, that they can reconnect with their ancestral modes of healing?
Really shifted my consciousness around what is the life I want to build and what's the health I want to have at the end of this road. Because if I don't change my behavior, I know what the end goal will be.
We are back for another episode. Appreciate you guys subscribing, coming back, checking out the content we're providing, and make sure you drop us a comment. We love hearing from our listeners, from our viewers. We're also available on Apple, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And today, our guest is no stranger to this podcast. She's been with us in the past, and we've had a really great conversation with her. I'm excited to speak to her again. She is a doctor of Ayurvedic medicine, an author, and the creator of the Fusionary Formulas line of wellness products. And I see her as a significant influencer in this space, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. Please welcome to the podcast, Dr. Shivani Gupta. Thanks for being here again, Shivani. It's good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Well, we really enjoyed having you on, and I'm glad you made time to hang out with us again. And I know last time we talked a lot about Ayurveda, and we had a great discussion, a very educational discussion for our listeners and viewers. And today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more as a person, get to know you, and just talk about the path that got you onto Ayurvedic medicine and the whole idea of ancestral medicine. Like, clearly, Ayurveda is ancestral, and I know you've really embraced this modality. And, should we be paying more attention to ancestral medicine on a whole?
I think so. The ancient wisdom that exists in this planet, in these huge systems and sciences around medicine, are such powerful toolkits. And here in modern day times, we are born, we wake up, our parents tell us, oh, we're going to the pediatrician or we're going to the homeopathic doctor, and we trust and go to those resources. But if we take a big step back and just look at it from a 30,000 foot point view, right now, the level of disease, devastation, and struggles with our health is pretty tremendous. I get phone calls every day, and it's shocking to me how everyone is struggling with something. It's hair loss, it's skin conditions, it's rheumatoid arthritis and rheumatology issues. Most of us are obese and pre-diabetic, so the issues are big. And so it really leads me to look at the situation and say, okay, if all the pressures are coming at us that are making us sick, how do we defy that? How do we become sovereign? And that's where I think it's so powerful to look into the ancient toolkits because they're all about prevention. Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, naturopathic medicine, homeopathic medicine, osteopathy, like the manipulation of the body, which is now chiropractic and osteopathic medicine, massage, Reiki, energy healing. These are all really amazing ancestral systems that showed us, hey, there's different ways to do things. And so Ayurveda, the system that I teach, is over 5,000 years old. And Ayurveda shows us how to bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment, and how when we have that, we can build vibrant health. So to me, it's actually about both and. It's not either or, because I think Western medicine is profoundly helpful. I have used it. I'm married into a family of all doctors, so I love them. But if my job when it comes to my health is my own responsibility, and that's where I find this ancestral wisdom to be so profound and deep and supportive of our health goals.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's an area that most of us have not taken the time to dive into. So I just applaud you for that. Like, do you have any memories of like a grandmother or an aunt or a parent who utilized your ancestral medicine in your own life as a kid or when you were growing up?
For sure. So growing up, my parents came to the US with nothing, and they were very lucky and hardworking and built successful enterprises. And as I grew up, I got to go to India every year, which I now realize is lucky because I look at my kids and I'm like, that's an expensive trip to book, just flying to India to go hang for 2 weeks at a time. But we'd fly back to see their parents, their siblings, and my cousins. And my grandma And I just saw her last year and she was doing the same thing. And I thought, gosh, that's where I got it from. She sits all day and she's either picking, peeling vegetables, cutting different things, picking herbs, and making different oils and tinctures out of them that she used to use on me. So whenever I had a gut issue, she would make this special tea and my gut issues would magically go away, the gas or the bloating or the pain or the discomfort. And that probably happened to me a couple thousand times in my childhood. And so that remedy I now use as an Ayurvedic practitioner, because I'm like, well, she invented it and it works beautifully. And so there's this beautiful cross between the ancient system and science of medicine from India called Ayurveda, that's over 5,000 years old, and living as an Indian person. Because in our own culture, it's inbuilt that we use those super spices from Ayurveda, that we, understand our gut health really well, that we honor circadian rhythm and live according to the seasons. Some of that's been lost in modern day times, but I see this circling back to it because people realize, hey, there's a lot of health and struggle here. Let's go back to those ancient wisdoms to give us what we need. So yeah, I saw my grandma this time. She's like, I made a mustard hair oil. Do you want some? I was like, of course. I'll take anything you've made because you were my original teacher on this.
Yeah.
That and my father was kind of like a biohacker because he saw such health issues in his family and he kept reaching into organic and healthy and every tool he could find to kind of reverse Parkinson's and issues in his parents.
Yeah. That's so great. I mean, what an amazing story just to have access to your grandmother who showed you those things and what a profound influence that can have on your life. And I'm guessing your Fusionary Formulas line has a lot of the inspiration from what she's taught you. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, when I studied, I had all my own health issues growing up. I finally realized that it was the chronic antibiotic use that was killing me. It took me a long time to figure that one out, though. I had already taken really strong antibiotics month after month through middle school, through high school. Finally, by college, I was away from my parents and I went to the doctors and they said, oh, you've taken too many antibiotics. We can't give you anything else. And I thought, whoa, I need the next tool. And you don't have the next tool, but you won't give me the next tool? That's weird.
Hmm.
And so I went on my own quest. And when I learned about Ayurveda, I realized, wow, we have a profound toolkit. Mother Nature made us turmeric, ginger, boswellia, amla. These tools are really powerful. They're actually
Hmm.
where our Western medicine pharma drugs come from. So
Hmm.
really the origination point is what we're going to. How can we take this wisdom and teach it in a way that's useful? So I studied Ayurveda as my master's. I did that PhD on turmeric, the spice, and then became so passionate and realized, okay, if my grandmother's medicine works, if Ayurvedic medicine works, why can't I find a way to synthesize this into a really potent form and give it to people to deliver a result? And can I prove to all of Western medicine that I don't call it Ayurveda to them, but that super spices from Ayurveda has the science and the backing to be used in clinical practice? And so
Yeah.
that was my dream 10 years ago, and it's working. Like doctors are using it every day, which my whole life dream happened in front of me, and I get to live it out every day, which is cool.
That's fantastic. And, there is science to back that up. I mean, I've been on PubMed,
Yeah.
and if you look up turmeric,
Yes.
there's probably 1,000 articles on its benefits,
Yeah.
clinical trial type stuff, and like it's there, it's established in the literature. So if somebody turns around in the medical industry and says, that's folk medicine, there's actually a lot of science backing that.
It's true. There's so much science in the literature. Now we have up to 17,000 scientific studies published, whether it's clinical trials, animal studies, human studies, that talk about the benefits of curcumin. And then I get to present on that at medical conferences now, orthopedic conferences, neurology, longevity. And so my dream is just to keep bringing that science forward, to build my own clinical trials on it and bring that forward. But yeah, we have irrefutable evidence of the effects on curcumin for inflammation, antioxidants, anti-aging, anti-obesity, antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, which I love it for. I love the immune supportive benefits of it.
Mhm.
And I just wish everyone understood that this one spice can do so much that we need, so we don't have to struggle so much with constantly looking for every tool, every superfood, every workout, every diet. Those are great, they're supportive, but this one thing can help us win, and then we can build that supportive lifestyle around that once we're
Yeah.
winning at the inflammation that's at the root cause of our problems.
Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing your past and just dealing with a lot of antibiotics. I don't think you told us that before, and I appreciate your openness. Now, I've heard some horror stories of people who have used antibiotics chronically, which, they're a very important medication to take if you're dealing with an infection, and there's nothing that could replace those. But chronic use can get dangerous and harmful. So, were you able to offset the effects of chronic use just by embracing this modality?
It took a lot of work. I would say in my 20s, I started studying Ayurveda, shifting my lifestyle, shifting my diet, taking great probiotics, understanding how to rebuild gut health. Took me through my 30s. I finally went to functional medicine and realized I still had leaky gut because it took 20 years for leaky gut to become a more understood concept. And the minute the doctor said it to me, I said, wow, that explains my whole life. I've had to treat myself like an autoimmune patient for 20 years. And
Wow.
now you're telling me you guys have great tools. And so now I put really strong probiotic protocols against it. I win, I retest and see that. And then sometimes I cause gut dysbiosis again. And so I move through functional medicine practitioners every year because I'm always optimizing. And I learned last year I caused it again due to stress. And so my practitioner said, you're stressed out. I am your friend on social media, so I can see what's happening. I need you to slow down. And I was like, I don't want to slow down. And she goes, okay. And I later called her and laughed. And I said, I'm the practitioner. I should realize that as a practitioner, clients don't want to slow down, but that's the work they have to do. And I teach
Yeah.
self-care, so it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great though. I mean, that's great that you were able to just make those discoveries and realize the changes you need to make.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, I've had so many conversations with people over the years, but it's crazy what stress does to us on a biological and physiological level. It affects parts of our bodies we don't even know are being affected. And if we just don't take that time to just stop and breathe and relax and just meditate on being more peaceful and with yourself and withdrawn from all the stresses and distractions going off all the time, it's so important. I mean, it can be a real game changer.
It's true. I'm writing a book for Hay House right now. The book is coming out January 2026. And in the book, I have a whole chapter on the effect of stress because stress will impact the gut. It'll cause gut dysbiosis. Take that up, the gut brain axis. We know it causes all sorts of brain issues as well. Mental health gets affected. The
Yeah.
entire body ends up inflamed, and we're battling that. And so we underestimate how much stress affects us. And we think of stress as just, oh, I get stressed out. But we forget that there's stressors on the system at all times, whether that's mold, whether that's microplastics, whether it is poor air quality, poor water quality, pesticides in our foods, whether it's, of course, family and personal and work stressors. Those are mental health stressors, emotional stressors. But there's a lot of physical stressors. And so a big focus of mine is how can we get those out of the way? How can I reduce our microplastic use, our Teflon use? How do I shift our cleaning products to be cleaner, our skincare? This year I shifted all my makeup to be cleaner as a very conscious decision. And I'm always looking for what's the next frontier because every type of stress impacts us, including the mental health type of stresses that we take on. And so building a life that supports your health is a very sovereign act because we're sold a lot of ideas around productivity and hustle and grind
Yeah.
and win. But I find that the more I do that, the more I got gut dysbiosis and the diseases I don't want to have. And so every time I run at that wall, I have to remember, don't do it. You're going to hit it and go splat. And so I've
Yeah.
really shifted my consciousness around what is the life I want to build and what's the health I want to have at the end of this road. Because if I don't change my behavior, I know what the end goal will be. And so
Yeah.
every year I'm always improving some area. So a lot of years I'm focused on lifting and being stronger, diet and protein, supplements and getting healthier, hydration, brain health, gut health. I have different categories. But
Mhm.
I also think that stress management, stress resilience, building those breaks is equally important, or we're not going to get the gains and benefits that we want.
Yeah. So what do you do when you take those breaks?
So for me, it's a couple things. In the morning, I try to always take a few minutes to either meditate or tune in. If it's out the door with kids and that doesn't happen, then by the time I get to the gym, which is usually my first stop, I'll make sure that in my workout, I'm really working on my mindset. I really talk to myself and set my intentions for the day. I pause a couple times a day and have something called tea time is me time. And that's where I just pause, sip my tea, and ask myself questions and ask my intuition, how are you feeling today? Everything going okay? Have you planned today so you get to eat? Are you taking your supplements? Like, what do you need to do this week for the week to be better? And my intuition will usually answer, you should move in nature this weekend. You should not go to that thing you said yes to. And all of a sudden, my intuition will give me these answers. And I've trained it to give me really out of the field answers sometimes, like, don't take that meeting. And I'll just cancel meetings because I'll say, you know what, my intuition knows better than I do. But taking
Yeah.
those pauses and breaks throughout the day, every 2 to 3 hours, is my way of just tuning in, dropping into my parasympathetic nervous system. If we're in sympathetic, if we're in fight or flight, we're not going to rest and digest. That means we're not going to get the nutrition from anything we're eating or trying to consume. And even when I eat now, I have to fight with myself, but I put my phone down and I'm like, listen, do you want the nutrition from the food or do you want to digest what you're watching? Pick one, because you're not going to digest both. And that's a hard one because we've trained ourselves to like learn and grow or tune out or numb out while we're eating. But if you
I'm
think about
so
it,
guilty of that.
me
You're
too.
convicting me right now.
Me too. I'm guilty of it too. And every
Yeah.
time I have to say, you know what? You teach this and you know better. Which one do you want to digest? And that question's powerful because I know how much I invest in food. Everything's organic and fresh and sprouts and all the things. So I'm like, well, I'd really like to digest that. I'm eating protein for
Yeah.
a reason. And so then
Yeah.
that'll compel me to put the phone down because
Yeah.
it's easy to be on the run all the time. And
Mhm.
another good one I do is I drive a lot. I have kids. So when I'm driving, I will tune out. I'll say no phone calls, no podcasts, no audiobooks. Either it's meditative music or silence. And just that break for the brain is so powerful because we're so used to being on social and listening to things. Another one I do is called circadian walks, tuning into my circadian rhythm and walking in nature. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a really cool business that's growing. I'm a mom, and I get to be a practitioner and teacher of this topic. So if I let it, the work is 24/7. I go to sleep
Yeah.
thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. My whole evening, I'm like, oh, the kids are busy. Let me do another hour and a half of work. It's so tempting, right?
Yeah.
But again, this body doesn't understand why we're in go, go, go mode all the time. So we
Mhm.
have to give it the physical breaks so that it'll give us the mental break, the emotional break, and the peace. And that's how we bring that alignment back into place.
Yeah, definitely. And is this a Western thing? Because you're in America, you're living that go, go, go American lifestyle. Do you see a difference when you visit your grandmother in India?
India has changed. So I'm 44. I've grown up visiting India over 40 years. It changed while I grew up. First, I saw coffee shops come in, and I was like, wow, boys and girls can meet in coffee shops? That's a new idea in India. Then fast food came in. I was like, whoa, we had a great culture. Why are you letting McDonald's in? Soda, like trash after trash. Britney
Oh,
Spears,
wow.
not that she's bad, but pop culture of not dressing very conservative came in, and I was like,
Yeah.
that's not Indian. Like the cultures are pretty strict there. It's a
Hmm.
conservative culture. And
Hmm.
so I saw it transform, and I thought this is going to go one of two ways. Either there'll be a conservative piece that holds the core values, and there'll be another side, or the whole country will change. And now when I go, I would say it's 90% modernized, hustle, grind. The men and women work. They have divorce rates not like we do in America, but they're rising fast. The
Yeah.
family the family makeup has broken. It's not a grandchild, parent, and grandparents live as one. Everyone's separate. So a lot modernized and changed, and it's such an exploding economy. I get it. It's so tempting. So now
Yeah.
the airports are phenomenal. The companies are growing and scaling. So it's fun. But, from a nostalgic standpoint, I do miss the grandma was just cooking and the grandkids would come home and they'd eat that fresh organic food made with the most love. And there was a family unit that was different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I go back far enough just growing up in the 80s where, there just wasn't cell phones. There wasn't TikTok. There was none of that, right?
Yeah.
Like we just existed and we went outside to play.
Yeah.
And I tell my kids that now and they can't understand it because they just didn't live it like Like, it sounds like you remember too.
Yeah, I
So
do. I grew
yeah,
up playing outside for hours. And then
yeah,
okay, the sun is setting, I have to go home. And now we
exactly.
get home and my kids have computers, iPhones, and iPads. And I can't compel them to go outside unless I
Yeah,
say, I'll walk you to the ice cream shop. And then they're like, okay.
yeah.
So,
And then there's ice cream in the mix.
look, I have to inflame you to get you outside. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So you had this blessing of just an experience of having a grandmother that's taught you all this and has had a profound influence on your life. So you were able to embrace those ancestral roots through her, which I think is awesome. Now, for somebody that doesn't have that connection, maybe they don't have living grandparents, what steps can somebody take, do you think, that they can reconnect with their ancestral modes of healing and wellness?
It comes down to two things. One, either digging back into your own family history and asking those questions of what did my mom do and what did my grandma do? When it was time for me to get pregnant and have kids, I was already studying Ayurveda and I realized Ayurveda has so much wisdom around pregnancy. But my mom didn't remember all the answers. So I said, I need to meet your friends. And I went and met with her friends in Houston and interviewed them, taking notes of what you do for a woman just before birth and post pregnancy. Because we have a very beautiful 40-day protocol we do to rebuild the health of mom and baby. And I wanted to know it and I wanted to understand it anthropologically from the Indian mom standpoint and then also this Ayurvedic standpoint. So sometimes it's be an investigator and researcher into maybe it was your grandma's sister, your grandma's brother, like get that history to understand your roots.
Yeah.
Or it's go and study these sciences. Ayurveda is available to everyone. I have
Hmm.
met, I mean, in America, it's mostly Americans who are teaching it, which is great. It's a science that's available, applicable, and accessible to all. And it's so powerful as a preventive lifestyle. So I'm trying to teach it to everybody. That's why I'm here. And then I think everyone has this opportunity. Usually we find Ayurveda when we're super sick. People find it when they're just at like the last door of possibilities. And that's usually when I get the phone call. Like I got one today, I talked to them for 45 minutes and I said, listen, I have a very modern approach. I partner with functional medicine because I understand all their testing, I get it done, and I self evaluate with my practitioners and make plans. And a lot of times I will sit in on those calls. I'll say, I'll sit in on your intake call with functional medicine because I want to see how he's going to test you and diagnose because
Hmm.
the Ayurveda side is the lifestyle. And if we don't bring lifestyle into place, we're not going to support the result because you can get any result, any beautiful result out of functional medicine. But if
Yeah.
you revert back to your old lifestyle, you'll just cause that problem again. And so
Yeah.
that's where I think the study of Ayurveda is just us understanding it. I have a YouTube channel with 100 videos and I teach all the tools and I teach the easy, simple ones that are free. And then as you get the hang on those and you understand how to build the rhythm and lifestyle into your life, then you can upgrade and do the bigger self-care tools and things that we teach.
Hmm. So do you think genetics play a role in ancestral medicine? Like we all have ancestors that ate foods that were available to them at that time in history. Yours were different from mine, obviously, because we have different backgrounds. But do you think that, for example, you and I might eat differently based on our different backgrounds and what was available to our ancestors?
Sure. I worked at Canyon Ranch in the Berkshires as my first job out of college because my dream was I'm going to open a health spa, fuse in Ayurveda, and change everyone's life. And they'll all come and they'll all be healthy when they go. And that was 23-year-old me about 20 years ago, just bright eyed and bushy tailed. And I remembered when I worked at Canyon Ranch, it was really I was basically going to college again. I just wanted an education in integrative medicine, which is what I got there, understanding all the modalities that they brought together. And they talked about this idea of epigenetics, how we have our own DNA, 99% of our DNA is all the same, but the little variations that exist do make us different. And there is a piece of it where an Indian versus a South American versus a Chinese person, Japanese, North American, Irish, Eastern European, we're coming from different backgrounds. Some people might have had lots of potatoes that they grew in that area, so their
Yeah.
body processed potatoes well. I come from a rice and lentils community. I can eat my rice and lentils. If you're Latin American, probably rice and beans and,
Hmm.
plantains, which we consider all of that really high carb right now. But if
Yeah.
you look, their genetic makeup, their background, allows them to eat that and process it well because they have the right enzymes for it.
Right.
So I very much think that we need to understand where we're coming from to understand what we can eat, because genetics does play a role, good and bad. I have really bad genetics. It's why I'm so still obsessed with biohacking, functional medicine, and Ayurveda. I have to fuse all three just to hold the line. Like when we do my blood work, my practitioners, anytime I hire a new practitioner, they're like, "That's your blood work?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And do you know I work full time on my health, and my major investment in life is my health? And they're like, "Wow."
Are you saying because you don't like the results? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
my
Really?
A1C since 40, my A1C is 5.8, which to me is not good. I should be
Yeah.
much lower. I shouldn't be in the range of pre-diabetic. My
Yeah.
cholesterol is high, and I work so hard to reduce those numbers. And I saw in my family around me when I went to Houston recently, they were like, "Oh, 5.8, that's nothing. We're all 6.9. What do you mean that's bad cholesterol? Your cholesterol's awesome." And I realized the entire family history around me, even though they're fighting pretty hard, they're losing big time. And because I'm a practitioner who has a lot of access and a lot of effort in this arena, and I've built a lot of discipline for it, my numbers are better. But it's one of those things where I do think that as we age, our genetics are more of a factor. And so
Hmm.
we just have to up our game. We literally have to take the same effort. Let's say Shivani was at 100% max effort in her opinion before. She
Hmm.
now has to go towards a 200% max effort just to hold that line as we age, because we know metabolism, all our cells, our mitochondria, everything slows down. And I didn't acknowledge that until I was 44. And now I'm humbled, and I realize it is going to be a different ball game each half decade that we go
Yeah.
through life.
Do you think that that's interesting, the A1C
Yeah.
comment that you made? Do you
Yeah.
think that ancestrally or genetically that might be normal for you? Who are we basing these labs on? And I'll give you an example. My wife is African American, and when she runs her complete blood count, she'll find that her lymphocytes are lower. And so they'll come up low sometimes. I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this. But when I did some research on it, it's common in people of African ancestry.
Sure.
So who are we comparing these baselines to? And does that mean that your A1C is actually a problem for your genetic makeup? I'm not saying I have the answer, but I think that's a question that we need to ask when we look at those labs. Do you think?
I do think so. You know, what I think is interesting is in Western medicine, we're dealing with very wide labs. Like they say 20 or 25 is fine for vitamin D. Now, if you ask functional medicine doctors who are very much looking at a different whole, they're looking at things differently. Functional medicine is diving much deeper into all of the Eastern and integrative sciences, ancestral as we're calling them, that are validated by science, and bringing those to the table as well. Functional medicine has a much tighter range. So when I meet with functional medicine, they very specifically go through my blood work, and they're like, "Your vitamin D was 35, you brought it to 67, good job. We
Hmm.
want you in the 80s. You're still not there." And so I'm dealing with a much tighter, narrower window of what I'm seeking. It's harder to hit the mark, but I
Yeah.
know that to function well, I need to hit those marks. Could it be that some numbers are different because I'm Indian? Yeah, you're probably right.
Hmm.
Where we could be banging our head against the wall. And that's where whenever I go to functional medicine, if they ask for a big change, I usually hire a health coach, because a big change requires not just a behavior change, it's a huge mental and emotional shift.
Hmm.
Like last year I tried to get myself to eat meat, and I've been vegetarian for over 40 years. And I allowed the kids to eat meat. I said, "Kids, you can have white meat. Go for it. I think we need to change the equation in our house. I think we all need more protein." And when I try to go high protein, I'm eating a very processed diet. It's veggie burgers, Greek yogurt, tofu, and then eggs. And so I
Yeah.
eat like 9 eggs a day, but inevitably to reach the protein goal between that and protein powder, it's a lot of synthetic stuff going in all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And that goes against my values. And it also goes against probably what's good for my gut health and body.
Hmm.
And so what you're saying, it feels very right to me, which is we're going to have different ranges based on our
Yeah.
backgrounds. Can we just accept that and then make sure in every other way we're optimal, instead of
Yeah.
maybe battling something that's kind of impossible for some of us?
Yeah, I agree. See, I run labs quarterly just because I'm like that. I try to stay on it, you know. I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah.
So I've been chronically sick and I want to optimize, my time on this earth that God gives me. Now, the last lab I ran, um, I had a weird cholesterol number come up, and it was um, I think it's the LP or lipo little a. Do you know
Yes.
which one I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah. So that's that one you can't lower through diet or through, I think you have to take a medication, maybe. I think there's a statin or something
Okay.
that can lower it, but it's hard to lower naturally. Some people have tried high dose niacin with, varying results. And so when I got this result, I had like I freaked out, right? I was like, I'm making this extra cholesterol lipid that's raising my heart attack and stroke risk.
Right.
But then I did a lot of research, and there's a lot of doctors, a lot of cardiologists on YouTube
Hmm.
that have different opinions on this.
Sure.
And one of them said, why would your body intentionally make something that's harming you?
Sure.
And that he presented some research saying that people with elevated lipo little a actually have longer lifespans a lot of the time if they have their other numbers in check. So their the LDL and HDL is well balanced. Their what's the other one? I'm going blank here. It's the one that measures the fat molecules in the blood. It's always on a lipid panel. Do you remember?
I know what you're
Um,
talking about.
yeah, I forget. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
blanking here, and I'm like
my
screwing up my point.
no,
But
I get you though. What you're saying is sometimes something can be good or bad, and it's important to do
yeah,
our research and understand it. I have
hmm
seen people talk about how cholesterol is a good thing, and I was like, oh, so maybe I'm not high cholesterol. I'm just protecting my brain. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see those different viewpoints. What's cool is in Ayurveda, we're very moderate, and so even though I like looking at extremes, no matter what extreme I tend towards, my whole being will say, the middle ground is what matters. The body isn't meant to be pulled to this extreme or that extreme. That's never a good place to be. And yes, like you're saying, sometimes the body will create something protective. It's doing something on purpose. And we need to just be patient and keep an eye on it. Obviously, we shouldn't all have horribly bad cholesterol and crazy high A1Cs and these things. That's an
yeah,
indication of going the wrong direction. But
hmm
in general, I think it's so important to be paying attention to what could be adding up and contributing to that. What did you change that maybe changed that? And it's as simple as that. In my kid's case, I recently had an issue with my son. Pediatrician wasn't listening. I went to a specialist, and I realized, you know what, I'm going to want a deeper answer. So although I
hmm
went to a Western specialist doctor and we did huge blood work on him, I went to functional medicine and ordered a proper stool test. And the stool test told us exactly what was wrong. Kid had a parasite. Kid had
wow,
H. pylori, and really bad overgrowth and leaky gut. And the Western medicine blood work just showed A1C a little elevated, cholesterol elevated. And I thought, first of all, I handed you my genetics. Wow. Second of all, you're a soccer playing, sailing, active, thin kid. This blood work doesn't tell me what to do at all. But
hmm
the stool test told me, wow, there's a different picture. And so
hmm
that's where I think we all need to go to functional medicine and get a stool test. And then
yep,
for us women, hormone panels. Because if you don't do a hormone panel, you have no idea what's going on.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Triglycerides. That's the number I was saying. Yeah. So when those are high, that's always a problem
for
for
sure.
people, from what I understand. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. Sorry. I just had to, I had a momentary lapse in
Yeah.
thinking.
Happens to be.
Um, it's my age.
How
Can
old
you?
are you, Mike?
I'm 50.
Oh, okay. You don't
Yeah.
seem 50
Yeah.
at all. Got it.
Oh, I
You can't
don't?
say that. Until we're in
Okay.
our 70s, I'm not considering myself in the hemisphere of old. That's my opinion. My mom is
You
70
look
and
nowhere near 70.
I'm 44 and my mom is
Okay.
70 this year. And I'm like, Mom, I just want you to know that at 70, I'm going to be running. I'm going to be hiking. I will be so active. Let's go. So I just think age is such an interesting thing now because we have so much knowledge and wisdom on how to mitigate the effects of aging. We have great supplements. Turmeric itself is so anti-aging, and we know so many others like it. So why wouldn't we just keep investing in our ability to be vibrant and sharp and healthy and active and all those things, you know?
I agree. And you're on the right track because you look fantastic. If you told me you in your mid 30s, I would believe you.
Thanks.
I do. You're doing the right thing, Shivani. I love
Thanks.
it. I love it. Um, so you mentioned your grandmother, and I love that story. Can you share a memorable patient success story where Ayurveda played a key role in healing a symptom or healing an ailment? You talked about how your grandmother would make oils and give you different remedies when something was going on, and it would really help. Have you seen this in your own practice? And tell me of one example that really stands out that you remember.
I have two that are so good. They're opposite. So one, because I just put them in my book, so I remember them really well. One, a woman named Natalie, she was having sleep issues. She couldn't sleep. And she was almost to the point of sleep psychosis. She went to the doctor and they were like, if you don't sleep soon, you will harm someone. It's going to be bad. So
Really?
I sat down with her. I went through everything. I like being a sleep investigator because
Hmm.
after talking about sleep with hundreds of people now, I can usually figure out the weird thing that is the problem.
Hmm.
And with her, her husband is a personal trainer. So he wakes up early, he sleeps late. He's what we call in Ayurveda a vata body type. So he's just
Hmm.
thin, wiry, and all over the place. And dear Natalie is a straight guffa. She is earth energy. She needs her 10-ish hours of sleep. Sleep has to be honored in her life. And so I basically told them both, I said, you need to put on a sleep tracker and understand your sleep. So she started doing it and he started doing it because he heard my videos on sleep. And when he saw his sleep score and how horrible it was, he decided to do everything I teach on sleep, and she was doing it as well. And so, because I fixed husband and wife, husband inadvertently, all of a sudden everything changed for them. And she started getting the sleep she needed. She understood how to honor Kapha energy, her body type. We teach these three mind body constitutions in Ayurveda that I'm sure we
Hmm.
covered on the last podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
so when you do the dosha quiz, which I have on my website, you come to know your constitution. And then you come to really self understand how to navigate your day, your sleep, your meals, and things like that. So that was a big one because once we fixed her sleep, all of a sudden everything else got better. Inflammation reduced in the system, gut health got better. She had more energy throughout her day, outlook changed, everything changed. And then another really cool story is a client I had named Paula, who was very Vata energy. So a Vata person is thin and wiry. They tend to be like airy, ethereal in a way. So
Hmm.
she had a tendency towards anxiety, tendency towards being stressed. And all we had to do was ground her down. So it was three structured meals in a day. She had been coming off this huge green juice fasting, intermittent fasting thing she was doing with another group that left her really depleted. And so my job was just to really refill her up, teach her a new rhythm. And once
Hmm.
she did that, she felt phenomenal. So to me, if someone comes to me and I can just do those easy fixes and bring them back into balance, that's so fun and so easy. If it's much more complicated, which is the majority of the phone calls I get, I make them go to functional medicine first because
Hmm.
the level of it's like liability to me. You are coming with something so serious. I don't want you to get even more unwell. I want
Yeah.
someone watching your back. And
Hmm.
then once we understand, is it mold? A lot of times with my clients, it's mold and things like that.
Yeah.
Major gut dysbiosis, parasites, things like that. Once we've understood it and we're treating in a holistic, natural way, then I can bring in my entire holistic toolkit towards that as well.
That's amazing. I love that. I love hearing those stories, and it's great when people can make those connections and feel better.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of Ayurveda?
You know, people nowadays, I think what happens is people like to criticize what they do not understand, and people are fearful of what they do not know. And sometimes there are smear campaigns against natural, alternative, integrative solutions that work. And that's just people operating out of fear, I think. So I think there's always enough work for all of us, and there's always enough tools in the world to deal with all of us bio individually. So sometimes people complain that there's too many heavy metals in Ayurvedic supplements. And yes, that's true. If you build a supplement company and you're not watching what you're doing, you could put a lot of crap into a pill and no
Hmm.
one would notice until someone got really sick. And so when I built my supplement company, my goal was actually just to prove to Western medicine that we could use turmeric for pain. That was my
Hmm.
whole thesis, my hypothesis. And so if I was going to build something to put in doctors and surgeons' hands, I was going to make sure I did it in the most clean, pure, third-party tested way possible. And so there is a very easy way, if you are thinking in the right way, to build Ayurvedic supplements that are third-party tested in India, sourced properly, where my suppliers know the farmers. Like you co-op with your farmer, so you're already teaching the farmer how to grow the turmeric the way you want to get the most yield of the curcuminoids that you want. So
Hmm.
it's important that everything's healthy and clean and good. Then you're going for extraction, then third-party testing. Then it comes to the United States, where I have even more control over third-party testing and triple checking that everything is true and honest to the levels that I want. So I would say, heavy metals is a concern out of India and Ayurveda. And I think people just doubt whether something natural and holistic can work. And that's where it really takes a little bit of trust, a little bit of faith, and try it for yourself. Like you said, we're coming from different backgrounds. I could teach you something and it doesn't resonate at all. Or I could teach you something and it's the thing. So I think it's just about being open to what's possible in the integrative space and seeing which tools resonate for you. For me, acupuncture works phenomenally. If I have a problem and I go to acupuncture, it resolves. I love chiropractic. I love medical massage. And of course, I love Ayurveda. So that's my wheelhouse of what I use. And we all need to go custom build what works for us. Some people love cold plunging and cryotherapy. That's not my constitution. I don't want to be frozen. And so it's just about understanding what really drives you and makes you feel your best.
Yeah. And in all fairness, I don't think anybody enjoys cold plunges. They say they do, but if you've ever done one, I've done several, and I don't do them daily. I don't have that kind of stamina, but you do feel good after. So I get the draw, but I don't blame you for not doing it. So how do you incorporate nutrition into Ayurvedic healing? Like, you follow particular guidelines, dietary guidelines for different doshas? Is it primarily a vegetarian diet, like you said you've been on for a long time? Do you recommend meats? How do you approach that?
So in Ayurveda, we teach something called the Sattvic diet. And the Sattvic diet is basically what we would call a yogic diet. We're trying to help you bring body, mind, and spirit into alignment, not have any heaviness or dullness by eating foods that bring heaviness or dullness to the body, and not being in an angered or frustrated or agitated state, which foods can do that as well. So we're teaching to really eat those foods that are nutritious, have nutrient density, nutrient variety, that fit a circadian diet, which means eating according to the seasons where you live and eating those local nutrient dense foods. If we eat foods in season where we live, we're going to get more nutrient density from those foods. And oftentimes nowadays, so many people are eating what's just in the grocery store, which is shipped from all over the planet. And eating, peaches, nectarines, and watermelon in the summer is when it's in season. So that's the best time to eat that food. So the Sattvic diet says eat plant-based, eat healthy, eat fresh, eat organic, eat local. Don't microwave your food. If you're going to heat your food, bake it or heat it in the oven or toaster or on a pan. When it comes to storage of food, store it in glass. Keep everything as ancient and clean and simple as you can. Nowadays, we're buying frozen processed food, nuking it in the microwave, eating it and watching TV, and then wondering why we're obese and sick and inflamed and having chronic disease. And so really it's this honoring of, can you eat organic and fresh? And yes, the diet is primarily vegetarian, but what I love is Ayurveda is very open-minded. So when I read the textbooks, it talks about, you know what, if someone needs meat for their blood health and strength, give them the meat. And so my opinion has really moderated in the last decade working with people, because I do think nowadays eating white meat based on who you are and your choices can be really beneficial. That's why I'm allowing my own children to eat meat. I didn't want them getting all their protein from soy, because the alternative was soy chicken, soy this, soy that. And I thought, that's really processed. If the first core value is least processed foods, then we haven't pivoted in the right direction. So then you should take it from the earth, nature made it, and eat it organic and clean. I myself, I'm having a hard time pivoting to non-veg just because I've been one way for 40 years. So I'm doing it through protein powders and things like that to start, and sushi, where I can not taste it. But I do think that nowadays we're on a craze of really high protein diets. And my intuition says even that is out of balance. Why are we shoving so much protein down our throats, expecting our gut health, which most of us have a gut dysbiosis and inflamed and leaky gut issue, and then we're assuming the gut can handle it and the body wants it. And so I'm really playing with, I understand why high protein is valuable. I get it. I get it that we want to be lean and look a certain way. But are we doing the best service for our longevity? Or do we need to shift that a little bit into more fresh fruit and vegetables again and fitting in the really good nutritious stuff? And
Hmm.
then the last piece of that is, Ayurveda said that, but modern day time farming doesn't allow the food to have minerals and vitamins at the level we want. So I don't trust my organic food to actually be 100% beneficial. And I can see that because my blood work shows a lot of deficiencies, D, B, different vitamins. And so I'm eating a lot of supplements right now, in addition to my food, just to keep my body healthy and whole. And
Yeah.
I recommend that to everyone right now because I do think the food is lacking vitamins and minerals at the levels that we need.
Yeah, definitely. There's a mineral supplement that my friend Dr. Linda Wright, big shout out to Linda if she's listening, but she put me on, and it contains 59 different minerals, and it tastes like garden soil. You literally just stir it in water. So yeah, it's nothing, but I don't care. I just have it. It's a quick
Good.
gulp, and a minute later you're fortified with all these minerals that might not be in the salad that I ate an hour earlier.
Exactly.
So, yeah, you're right. We have to definitely keep in mind that sometimes the foods are depleted, and so it helps to supplement where we can.
Yeah.
Have you tried seafood at all?
I did.
You mentioned sushi. How'd you do with that?
I tried one scallop, and at different dinners, my friends have handed me fish, and they're like, Shwani, it tastes like nothing, just try it. And I will take it in a bite, and I will tell myself it's tofu so I can get it in. It's so funny. It's funny to me how mental it is. And I'm a biohacker. Like if you told me I want to like I inject myself with testosterone. I
Yeah.
do everything. Like I go to conferences and I'm like, give it to me. But meat, I'm somehow not open. And I know the benefits. I know I need omega-3. So as a practitioner,
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, either you take high dose krill oil or you eat the fish. And obviously taking it from nature is better. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that it's just 40 years of being anti the smell of fish
Yeah.
and chicken and these things doesn't go away overnight. So I'm working on it.
I get that. I totally get that. My wife and I were on a vegan kick many, many years ago, and our one of our sons was young, and we weren't giving him any, uh, animal proteins for a while, and we had him on a specific diet. Now, I don't remember the details. It was so many years ago, but I remember I bought a buffalo steak or something. And so I grilled it up for him. It was like the first piece of meat I could remember him having in a long time. And I remember we both sat around the table and watched him as he ate it, like making sure nothing was going to happen.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah,
was ridiculous, right?
yeah,
It was a piece of like probably the cleanest omega-3 packed
yeah,
meat he could eat.
yeah.
And he devoured it.
Nice.
And I
Yeah,
remember
you just
telling a friend
never
of mine
know.
after, yeah, I remember telling a friend of mine after, he's like, I told you,
Yeah,
he told you he was going to eat it up.
yeah.
But it's funny, like you say, the head games that we have where we're like, you think something's going to happen because you ate a scallop, right? But
Right.
it's all up here. I get it,
I mean, do
100%.
you have the enzymes? How will the stomach process it? Will it make you sick? Those are all
Yeah.
questions. And I grew up in a very spiritual and Hindu household, and so the conversation was always karma and like do no harm. So that element plays in too. But again, I think we have to moderate our. I moderate all opinions to health first, and so
Hmm.
even for my kids' health, I tell them, look, I'm allowing you to eat meat, but then don't waste it. Don't throw it away. If it's being cooked for you, you should plan to eat that. An
Yeah.
animal died for you to eat it. Just honor what that means. And so it's just interesting that the walking into this idea is so new to me, but my instinct says we have to eat what our body needs for nourishment first. So
100%.
yeah.
100%. And I just love talking to fellow biohackers because that's the story of my life. And so it's just great to know there's other people like me out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So Shivani, how can people get more familiar with you? I know you've been on before, but tell everybody where they can find your work and your supplement line.
For sure. So my website is my name, drshivani.gupta.com. It's ShivanIGupta. And I'm at dr.shivanigupta on Instagram. My podcast is the Fusionary Health Podcast, where I get into topics like this. And my supplement company is Fusionary Formulas, Fusionary, formulas.com. And we made a special code for your audience. Was it Mike C
It
equals
was Mike
15?
C.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike
Yes.
SEA equals 15% off.
Okay, great. We'll make sure to include that in the show notes once again. And Shivani, it was really great talking to you again. And I'm going to be bugging you to come back.
Please, anytime. I love talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. And that'll do it for this edition. We are out of here. hit us up at mikec.com. We're also on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and drop us a comment on YouTube. We love hearing from you guys, and we just appreciate your support. And we'll be back next time. Thanks, everybody.